Hey there, this is Rob from Southgate Media Group. The following podcast was recorded during the SMG Podcast Marathon at Indy PopCon 2018 in Indianapolis, Indiana. This podcast marathon was 10 hours long and featured 19 podcasts covering a wide variety of geek-centric topics. Before we jump into the episode, I want to thank our amazing sponsors for this SMG Podcast Marathon. Without you, it would not have been nearly as cool. Links to our sponsors can be found in the show notes and at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. First of all, thank you to Tango Comics for the exceptional event poster. Thanks to our banner sponsors, Passionerdly Podcasts, Tome Travelers Podcast, Kinda Nerdy News with KJ Podcast, Movie Madness Podcast, Ed Maudlin and the Maudlin Realty Group, Very Dark, Very Quick Podcast, Advanced TV Herstory Podcast, Seriously? Let's Play Podcast, Dice Voyeurs Podcast, The Masks of Nythralothtop Podcast, The CritShow Podcast, The Amazing LARP, Chronicles of the Realm, Midnight Matinees Podcast, The Blue Box Café in Elgin, Illinois, Otherworld Theater in Chicago, Illinois, the This Week in Geek Podcast, live at the Blue Box Podcast, the Binge-Worthy Podcast, and SMG Microcons. A special thanks to the Bonus Hours Podcast Network for sponsoring our free charging station. There would have been a lot of dead devices without your support. And finally, thanks to the sponsors of our program, the Bonus Hours Podcast Network, featuring the podcast Between the Profound and Profane, Kinda Nerdy News with KJ, The Crit Show, an actual play podcast, Very Dark, Very Quick, the podcast, Passionerdly.com, featuring the podcasts Dice Voyeurs and Tome Travelers, the Kevin Long Show podcast, and finally, the upcoming book, Pod Life, Podcaster Stories. And there we go, the plugs are done. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gaming with Scott. I'm here with Jade Duguay.
Hello.
I am here with John Garlick.
Howdy, howdy.
And we are also actually a live play group who is getting more into the game industry. Design and distribution and manufacturing are things we're really looking into. But for the last 5 years, 6 years, we've had a Marvel live play that we've been running. We have 6 years of content out there. That's all good. And we have recently branched out into Star Trek as well. So that being the case, Star Trek being one of our favorites, we are looking back on this particular half hour of our lives at the nostalgic things that we had from our youth, like such as Star Trek, the original series, the series that started it all. I think that's worth discussing.
That's in syndication. It was part of our, my childhood too. I mean,
Not mine.
So we're gonna talk trends that we loved and how they influenced us and whether or not we should bring them back or not. I'm gonna go ahead.
So top 3 trends from our adolescence.
Uh-huh. These are the ones that are going out to
Yeah.
the room. They're picking. Okay, top 3 trends from our adolescence. Jade, what do you got?
So
Give me one.
For me, Pogs was one of my favorites. I
Pogs?
loved Pogs.
Uh-oh, we got some Pog enthusiasts.
I had some neighbor
Slammers.
boys, and we would go out there competitively, and it was play for keeps. So
Wow, the little cardboard discs.
those little, and then you had if you were cool,
the
you had the
coin?
metal slammer.
Yeah.
And you had the board, and yeah.
How did you stack them up like a foot high and?
Yep. If it went off that board, that was yours.
Wow.
I loved Pogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You still have Pogs?
I actually recently at Goodwill found a unopened pack of Pogs with a plastic slammer.
Wow.
I had to buy it.
Did you open it?
No.
Or are you gonna eBay it?
I'm just gonna. I'm gonna wait for their, resurgence.
in case
when
the
they're coming
world
back.
goes up, you've got
I've got Pogs.
a Pog supply.
You can save that then? Is that the idea?
Well,
so would you bring them back?
Yeah, I would totally bring them back. Actually, so funny story. There's a board game designer named Matt Fantastic, and he just hinted that their company is working on bringing back Pogs.
Really?
So, yeah.
All righty. I always thought Pogs were the things that you lost between the sofa and the wall, and like you'd slam them and they'd roll under your.
They're the little puffins from Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My fifth grade year, the spring photo package included Pogs with your photo on it.
What?
Wow.
I wish I still had mine. It was the worst. I had this like short like boy haircut, and I hated dresses. And my mom made me wear this like pink and purple white checkered dress with a giant sunflower. But the background was a graffitied wall. It made 0 sense, and I had that on like a set of Pogs. I was like, yep.
Fantastic.
Nobody can win these. I'm sorry, they're terrible. So yes, I would bring back Pogs.
That's very 90s. That's
Very much
90s.
so. All right, John?
I would say my trend from when I was growing up in the 80s would be the various like He-Man knockoffs, G.I. Joe knockoff cartoons. All of them are trying to sell you their cheap-ass toy line. They're all serialized, and they just go, there are no endings or beginnings to any of these stories.
So you're specifically referring to Mask with a K.
Mask with a K, like the Hasbro verse.
Jace and the Wheeled Warriors.
Oh, Jace and the Wheeled Warriors, I totally had. That was J. Michael Straczynski.
I know. I was like,
somebody said this is something that it stuck with me. They said, well, Barbie dolls give girls a skewed self-image, and I realized, well, would I like my car better if it were a giant truck with a huge golden arm attached to the top and missiles on the side? And I said, yes, I would. I would feel better about my car if that were the case. Damn it, Barbie. And, well, there you go.
See, and I disagree with that completely. The Barbie stereotype.
I do too.
Being one of those things that are absolutely terrible. If you looked in the 80s at any of the He-Man figures.
Yeah, I didn't become a bodybuilder.
And might have noticed that it might have been skewed towards, what was that seafood we talked about earlier, prawn? It was like all buff, super muscle, heavy. I mean, it was some sort of crazy 70s take on... there was no way that I could live up to ever lifting enough cars to be that buff, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's one of those things that is a funny thing. It's like, what if something is stylized enough, does it stop being
the human body? The thing that it's modeled after. So you'd bring them back? Like Inhumanoids, Centurions. Centurions is all about the toys.
The Visionaries,
the Luminaries and Visionaries.
And then there was there was one thing where they had the cartoon was garbage, but they had really cool toys where they had like little wind up mechanisms in these spaceships, and it would like the wings would flip out, and they had little spacemen with magnets in their boots.
Nice.
And all that stuff.
So let me go a little more towards the mainstream. Was Voltron there just to sell toys?
Well, Voltron had its own life before that, whereas these were trying to cash in on the post He-Man action figure boom. Whereas, because I mean, He-Man was at its peak in 1985, $400 million in 1985 dollars.
Jeez.
$1 billion industry.
Sure.
Basically. Just He-Man.
Wow.
Which that
that's
cartoon
insane.
was designed to sell toys.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It existed as as an incarnation of the product line rather than its own thing.
Yep, which I'm going to dovetail and jump on. My very first number one was Transformers.
Yeah.
And Transformers, the TV show that was there to sell the toys, they started, and recently I watched the Netflix series about the toys that...
Oh, the Toys That Made Us.
The Toys That Made Us.
They just came out with their second
new season, and
at
one
the
of
time
them is
this recording.
Transformers.
Yeah.
So the first 30 seconds, they sit down and the guy goes in and he goes, all right, I need 26 Transformers and we need to get this to Hasbro by Wednesday, so you're working over the weekend. And the guy that wrote the whole, it said, I came up with it over a weekend. I came up with the first 26 Transformers and their names, and this is what we ran with. over a weekend, billions. And I mean, the franchise was fantastic. I had the original Optimus Prime, the original Megatron, the original Soundwave. Oh, they were iconic in my childhood, and I'd love to bring Gen 1 back and make it affordable and make it built the way it was when I was like, they were all metal.
Well,
they weren't cheap.
Some of them, several of them were very durable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you talking about Micronauts before?
Micronauts, that's
I
it.
didn't remember all the magnets, but they did have them on like the main guy. I still have a box of original Micronauts.
Yeah.
Nice.
I subscribed to a Micronauts newsletter.
Actually, Micronauts were cool, but this was a different thing, I think, now that I'm looking back. I think it was like something Star was in the name. Somebody's gonna. All the good guys, their ships were sort of white and orange, and the bad guys had like black and purple.
Micronauts.
Oh, that's Micronauts?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Bad guys had black, and the main guy had the spikes, and he had the black horse, and he was all black, and all the black ones were the bad guys.
Okay.
The white ones did have orange, and they had like the clear guys.
Yeah.
And those were actually that was the American version. The Japanese version was called Mr. Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Microman.
Microman.
Yeah, okay.
All right. I would definitely want to bring Transformers back, especially Gen 1, because I loved those toys. I loved those toys.
Because, I mean, the thing is that there's the interesting story of how G.I. Joe and Transformers relate before their IDW crossovers.
Yes, exactly.
Was that originally Takara licensed G.I. Joe. Post-war Japan couldn't really sell the American Fighting Man that well, so they made the plastic clear, turned him into a robot,
and then we were off to the races.
And the robot eventually became a changing robot, and then Takara ended up licensing
back to Hasbro. Exactly.
Interesting,
very
feedback
interesting
loop.
stuff. So I pulled my kids in for the first 10 minutes and then ended up watching the whole thing. The idea of, well, I don't know if I want to start this new thing. Over a weekend, they came up with Transformers that was billions in sales. So I suggest we should all do that. We should bring that back often.
Yes.
I'm probably only going to come up with $1 million idea this weekend. I'm just feeling kind of lazy.
I understand.
Podcast and everything.
I understand. It takes it out of you.
You know how it is.
Con life is rough life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So along at that same time, one of the things that I remember, and I never understood this, thinking about the different were the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Well, that was one of the things that
became Garbage Pail Kids, which I don't. Which is the
we were
that's
talking
the next
about
take.
that in the Real Idiots. That was one of the worst movies ever made.
I would not bring either of those back. I was never into the Cabbage Patch.
Cabbage
Kids.
Patch is still a thing.
But
it's still pretty prevalent, yeah.
That tells you how much I was like,
well,
not really.
But it's not like, I mean, I remember there were like riots at the Toys R Us
to try to get that first year that they came out to get a Cabbage Patch Kid for Christmas.
I went to KB Toys that year.
Ooh.
And the same time at Christmas, it was Cabbage Patch Kids, which were a nightmare, and the first wave of Transformers. I'll never forget, those boxes weighed 1,000 pounds. And the Cabbage Patch Kids, you put them out, they were gone.
And they were gone. They just disappeared.
A full-time job just putting Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yep. So it was Cabbage Patch Kids, I would say, was one of my no's.
No.
But it was heavy, and that it was right around the time of Transformers. It was the same year, and it was. I didn't get it. My cousin got one, and I was just like, okay. So it's like
a doll.
It's which to say
It's
the
a
Transformers were like.
baby.
It's like it was a robot, but
Yeah.
so it was straight
toy
along
car. I mean,
what at the time were considered the gender lines, like the robot for the boy and the
they
little
were-
doll for the girl.
and they were very strict gender roles.
Yes, very.
It was very difficult to bridge the gap. I mean, now though, we are seeing the consequences of the toy industries being unable to adapt, that they are putting the axe to shows like Teen Titans a few years back because girls are watching the same show and they are buying toys, and it's cutting into their assigned girl toy market share.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have a unisex aisle or something.
Right. Somewhere to put the toys and bridge the gap. Yeah.
And the idea of like the media that we're still consuming being governed by that.
Well, there
is
was a big
bizarre.
uproar for a while. Disney refused to make anything with Black Widow because girls had princesses. Why did they need a superhero? Like, there was an article where like somebody like high up in the chain was like, we don't need to put Black Widow on anything.
And I mean that is so out of touch.
And then
It's
there was
just
the
not
same with
unbelievable.
Ray.
With Star Wars, well, they didn't
Yeah.
What was a monopoly? They didn't
Like the
put
main
her in
character
there.
of the movie. The main
So-
character.
Everyone
Yeah.
was kind of waiting for it to drop, and it never did. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah. So that's kind of crummy, but because I have a daughter who's 7, and superheroes and.
Which is why I love Disney. I would go to their stuff. I love Marvel.
yeah.
I love the stuff they put out. But I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she walked out of Wonder Woman, and that we saw Wonder Woman Friday night.
Yep.
By Sunday morning, she had a golden lasso of truth and was lassoing everything that wasn't nailed down and some of the stuff that was.
We went opening weekend. Audrey wore her Wonder Woman outfit. We left. We went straight to Hot Topic. She bought her metal tiara.
Nice.
So-
Well, Wonder
yeah.
Woman the show was. I mean, I
With
loved
Linda Carter, it was my first crush.
I loved Superman. I loved Superman as like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, but I watched the Wonder Woman show. That I would go over to a friend's house, and me and her, we would watch watch it religiously.
Yeah.
Because it was, I mean, for one thing, it was cool, and there wasn't a lot else that was sort of like superhero that was accessible to
Right.
to people in the main
So
in general on media.
my parents had gotten one of the history of comic books, and it had the beginnings of Batman, Plastic Man, Wonder Woman, some of the original. So I read the original reprints of the original comics that came out. So I read and really enjoyed like the depth of the interactions in Themyscira and the warrior thing. And then Linda Carter is on the screen spinning around, and it was just at the time when I was like, huh? I was just like, well, this isn't the island, but I can watch this basically all day long. It was completely probably I should not have said that on mic, but still, it was one of those where it was ground.
Defining moments.
It was a defining moment, and I've always had a special place in my heart for Wonder Woman. But it was really interesting to see at the time there were no female superhero like at all, like not in books, not in movies, not in comics, in comics, yes, but not to the extent that Wonder Woman led that charge. And
Yeah.
And there was ISIS at the same time.
I just
Saturday
saw
morning
that.
TV show.
Oh, that's right.
ISIS and Shazam kind of.
Yeah.
They did that, and that was like late 70s, maybe, or probably late 70s.
Yeah, late
It was
70s.
around the same time, but that was literally it.
Yeah,
And Batgirl from Batman 66,
Yes.
and it was.
Yeah, we had that.
Can't we-
Yeah.
Catwoman and Batman.
yeah. Eartha Kitt as Catwoman. That was very classic.
Julie Newmar.
Julie
Yes.
Newmar.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Merriweather. You got to represent all three of them.
Oh, yeah. So,
Carrying on.
Scott's having another moment.
honestly, you could have just had a show.
I'd forgotten
where it
about
was
Lee
like
Merriweather.
A team of Catwoman incarnations would have probably worked pretty well, but in any case,
But I like Wonder Woman as a take.
yeah.
Good answer. You got another one?
My other one, Beanie Babies, but they're a bleh for me. Yeah.
I had to sell Beanie Babies, and oh my gosh, people are.
Crazy.
And it was a baby store. It's like, why do we even have these in here? And
So aren't they all that like $9,000 a piece now?
Yeah.
And they were
Oh, yeah, yeah.
investment, and you were supposed to go up.
Minimum for 50 cents.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I remember my local gaming store sold Beanie Babies, and
Hallmark.
there were just people pressed against the glass
We
to
saw
get
people
to
actually,
get the
like,
Beanie Babies.
Take them from children.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. That was 4th and 5th grade for me. And I had just moved to Indiana. So that was kind of like, oh, there was a couple I wanted. Oh, animals are cute, this and that. And then, like, next thing I know, I'm at Hallmark every week with my mom for the new releases. And we have this, like, metric ton of Beanie Babies. And
Are you headed there?
Am I going to tell the story?
Are you headed there? Or
We don't want to talk
traumatize? It's up to you.
No, my family jokes that Beanie Babies burned us twice. The first time in the financial investment, the second time because they caused a house fire for us.
Well,
We had
Fine.
they were stored up in our basement or up in our attic, and a work light fell down into it and sat there long enough that they combusted. So yeah, that's kind of a long running.
Metal Transformers.
Right? Exactly. Well,
So yeah, no, Beanie Babies
So
never
I
bring
bought
them
like
back.
a dozen Beanie Babies once as an investment.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, that didn't. And now, exactly. Now I do
See, now
this
I've
on
got
the
those-
fly.
They've tried to like resurge them with these Beanie Boos. Have you seen them? They got the big sparkly eyes. Those are Beanie
You can't
Babies.
catch lightning in a bottle twice.
She loves them. My daughter loves them, but
but something is either a fad or it's not.
No,
a
but
fad.
I was thinking the Beanie Baby people. How long did the Beanie Baby fad last?
it was
10 or 12 years?
It was a
So
while.
about year 7 or 8, the CEO should have packed as many suitcases with just crumpled up cash as he could and ran away.
Oh, heck, he did. He made $1 billion.
The weird stuff about that?
No, I don't know. I know nothing.
Companies, there were so
Really?
many, like conspiracy theories.
Oh, wow.
Everything about this, like it was wacky.
That's
Well, I mean-
crazy.
That company.
Shady stuff has happened over less money than that.
This, exactly.
This was like really
At
weird.
the top, Psycho was worth $1 billion. And the guy, like, something weird happened, and I don't know, I can't say I can
Nice.
say for sure, but there was a lot of hanky stuff going on. He got fired for stealing money and like stuff like that. But
Sure.
that's a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money out there.
As it was said earlier today, people have been shot for less.
Oh, yeah.
So there it is. All right, Beanie Babies, would you bring them back?
No. No, I would not.
Not unleash that upon the world. Let it fade into
I
history.
think, and I'm probably going to get some boo hiss here, but I think the pop vinyls are today's Beanie Baby. Like people going crazy over them. You don't think so? Like I see people like her, my.
I think that the reaction of a lot of people where they're like,
Yeah.
But I have a bunch of them. I think they're
Right. I think they're fun.
I don't want them to fill my house.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you need another one? You need more?
the ones who are praised
stop.
for it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think there's that like same reaction to them, and they think that they're going to be worth something, and then in a few years,
But I'll tell you what the difference is. Beanie Babies are biodegradable. They are going to fall apart and dissolve at some point. It's a worthless investment unless you get that one idiot that wants to buy it, Scott. And
Pretty much. That's what I was hoping for.
as they have the different iterations, I mean, it's a collector's market, and yes, it's a little nuts now. It's going to cool off, but maybe it won't.
I think some of them will hold some value over time just because they're nostalgic and like things that have been around for years.
Well, they're getting licenses that nobody else has.
Right.
Yeah, and that's part of the licensing.
But I think there's certain things that like Bob's Burgers. In 10 years, are people going to care about Bob's? I love Bob's Burgers,
Yes,
but
they
I think
are.
there's going to be a very.
Bad example, but I will give you this one. I do own the Ron Swanson.
I just think like
I'm
I
just-
think like the Disney
it's a thing.
ones, the superheroes, things like that might hold for time. But I think some of those like
If it's
now cartoons
Yeah, if
in
it's
10
just-
years, it's going to be a small group. Yeah.
But like the Rick and Morty's would probably hold
You think-
quite a while. Yes.
Yeah.
if it's somebody's
See, I
favorite
don't-
show,
yeah.
then they'll buy their stuff
But
for
that'll
it.
only go with them, it's not gonna happen.
Right. It's
Right.
not going to be a
Hulkbuster is going to be worth a ton.
right. And it's like yeah, I think there's things that have been. I think those will be rock solid as far as like the superheroes and stuff like that. But yeah.
You got another one? Or do you got another
Come
one?
back to me because I'm gonna.
I'll come back to you?
I'm gonna go fashion in my next one.
Ooh.
All right.
You go ahead.
You want me to go ahead?
Or
All right.
if you want.
So I've got an odd lineup. When I was there's 10 years difference between me and my first brother.
Okay.
Okay, so when I was 18, he was 8, but I was still taking him to movies and doing the whole thing. That being said, what I did was, and I purchased one of these, I had to dig and find it. When I was in 1980 was my first year role playing. Okay, we do a live play. Okay, so that puts it at some years that I've been doing this.
I wasn't born yet.
And yeah, I know. And the original red book and blue book for D&D Okay.
Yeah.
THACO. Okay. To
Oh,
hit
THACO.
armor class 0. Okay.
You see-
you need to do some math.
You see, there was a time when my brain was still forming connections, and I was able to learn a system that made no sense and had a million charts, and I had like the U.S. tax code in order to hit things. And
Now,
those
mind
days
you-
are gone. I need something story based now.
Nice. Now there was and before everyone yells, there was a purple edition before that, and there were the 3 pamphlet editions before that. I'm aware but what really got me was when I was 8 years old, my father took me to Walden Books, 30 miles north of Pittsburgh, and said, "Oh, your mother told me to buy you a book for your birthday. Go pick something out." And I found D&D and advanced D&D, and I went like red box, blue box, and I looked at the dragon on the front with the cauldron and the whole, and I'm like, oh. So I took this to my father and I said, "Can I get well, this is the first one, and this is the sequel, right?" And he goes, "Do they have books in them?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went, "Yeah, get them, I don't care." And I went, "Yes!" Little did he know, and years later we had this conversation, between 5 and 10 years later, he told me the ability to role play through a situation and improv your way, how's that ever going to help you in real life, business, anything that you'll be able to? And I went, okay. And now all of those skills are being taught with consultants to come in and teach you, hey, here's how you deal with, employees who are disgruntled, or with people you're trying to manage or coach or delegate, or all of these things. And these are skills of, you can think on a dime, you're quick on your feet, you can improv, you can work with other people. All of those I got back from the 1980 Red Book and Blue Book of D&D, because I was the only one that had it, and all my friends were like, "Oh, well, you have the books, you're running the games." And it was like, oh, crap. So I always ran the games, but I would love to bring back a wave of D&D first edition.
Ooh. Now, I have one that is a piece of nostalgia that I think people don't want to remember and don't talk about, that is a good closing thing for us. And that is, when I was growing up in the 80s, there was a wave of nostalgia then for the 50s and 60s, because that was when you had like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, that entire there were constant references to the 1960s and idolizing that era of culture, the music, all kinds of stuff. Everybody was obsessed with the 1950s and 60s. Like Back to the Future was a good example, and now we don't even associate that, but that was a defining feature of the 80s.
Yeah, Happy Days.
And and that is one of the things that we don't like to dwell on. That eventually the nostalgia that we have will become part of the nostalgia that the next generation has.
Would you bring back the Happy Days and the whole sock hop? And
No, I think the kids of today have enough trouble when their favorite toy is going to turn out to be an obsolete smartphone that doesn't work in the year 2040.
I would super bring that stuff back.
Yeah. Did you want to fashion one up? We
Yeah.
got 2 minutes or
My
less.
last one is Jenko pants.
Jenko pants? I don't even know what that is.
Those real big, wide.
And they had the big pockets.
Yes.
In the back.
So I
Or
just
you swept the street.
yeah,
when you were
or
walking
you
down it.
absorbed all the puddles.
They were the widest things I've ever
Yeah.
seen in my
Can
life.
you promise that you won't bring Zumbas back?
Hey, Zumbas, I'm in.
Guarantee that. I'll give it to you.
There you go.
I can't.
Right?
I just want to say, like, 15, 16, I was wearing Jenkos, and they were like this wide, and now at 32, I'm like skinny jeans all day long. Like, it's just so funny that my pants have just kind of, but they don't get wet when it rains now. It makes sense,
I
you
remember
know.
I stole my dad's bell bottoms in the 90s.
I went through in between the Jenkos and the skinny jeans were bell bottoms, because that kind of gave way to that. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've taken a half an hour of your time. We've given you a little bit of insight into us. Again, I'm up here with Jade and John. My name is Scott. You're listening to Gaming with Scott, and as always, you'll hear from us real soon.
bye.
For updates about upcoming SMG Podcast Marathons, follow us on Twitter @SMG Pods, on Facebook at Southgate Media Group, or go to our website and sign up for our email list at southgatemediagroup.com. Thanks again for listening.